I am Carol White, and today I am here with.
I am Judge Gabriel Denunzio Antonio Giancola. My dad traveled back and forth a number of times from our hometown in Raccaraso, Italy, working in the mines, and then he'd send money back, for the family.
When did your family come to the U.S. from Italy?
Well, when they connected up with one another, Christmas of 1920. My mother landed Christmas Eve on the steps of the Union Railroad Station in Chicago with 4 kids, nothing to eat. Somebody saw them there and brought a loaf of bread and some sardines, and that was their either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day meal before they took the train to Minneapolis.
And how many days did you say that travel was?
19 days on the good ship Caesar. They came through Boston, not Ellis Island.
And so what kind of business was your father in Minneapolis?
Basically, when he first came over, he worked shoveling coal for the Sioux Line, which was in our area. They eventually started a grocery store, small grocery store.
So what were Christmases like when you were a little kid growing up?
We had fun around the Christmas tree, I guess.
What kind of toys did you get back then?
We had a Lionel train set that everybody loved. Cheap skis. Back then you could get skis at a reasonable rate that were pretty good.
What was your best friend when you were growing up, and what kind of things did you do?
Best friends, let's see, there was Mickey Helm, Jack Fournier, Roger Pressman, and Robert Norberg.
So there were 5 of you.
Yeah, we're all in a block area.
What kind of things did you do for fun?
Well, where I was born and raised, a block south was a municipal golf course, Columbia Golf Course. We spent all of our days down there, basically not playing golf, but hunting golf balls.
And what did you do with the golf balls?
So during the war years, you could get a golf ball cut to ribbons, and you could get 25 cents for them because they're in such a demand.
And at some point you said you did learn to play golf though, right?
Not good.
But you played.
Yes.
And I think you said you still have some of those golf balls today?
No, I accumulated about 10,000 golf balls. I never sold them. I gave them to inner city kids, to golf teachers in various high schools, and just gave them away.
Oh, that's so sweet. First woman who captured your heart?
I was in the seminary and it was forbidden. I was dating a girl across the river. We get a day off and my sister would drop the car off within a block of the seminary and I'd use that. One of the days that we got off, I got a ride from Judge Schindler's buddies who weren't in the seminary. And the gal that I went over to see lived just west of Roosevelt High School in 48th and Nokomis. You had to check in by a certain time. Schindler with his buddies was supposed to pick me up at 4 o'clock so we could check in. I'm over there sweating it out, no Schindler. I finally went into a local 3-2 bar. There's a guy sitting there. I says, hey, I'll give you $10 to drive me across the river. The first 4 years of the seminary, I followed every rule there was there. Then everything changed, and I ended up with 2 other fellas, Zeke Swaber and Judge Schindler, and we were known as the Unholy Three, or the Sacrilegious Three, because we broke every rule there was in the books of the seminary. They had grand silence after the evening prayer, and there was about a 1 hour. You could do anything on the grounds between the evening meal and evening prayer. And grand silence meant you couldn't communicate at all with anybody. But the last year I was there, Bill Schindler, or Judge Schindler, and I lived on the 5th floor of the Grace residence. One evening, we picked up a Cocker Spaniel that was almost frozen, and brought him over to the refectory. We got some food for the dog, and then we brought him up to Schindler's room. While we were at evening prayer, the dog was barking and everything, and our prefect, we practically got him kicked out in his last year before becoming a priest, Father John Clay, says, I had to get that dog out of the building. So he got the dog out of the building. On the south side of the building, 5 stories up, there was an area fire escape outside. So Judge Schindler and I, in our pajamas, went down the fire escape. Judge Schindler was about 5'5", and I was close to 6, and there was about a 10-foot drop from the end of or less from the end of the ladder. I says, Bill, I'll call him, I'll drop you down, you go get the dog, and then we'll bring him back upstairs. Well, in letting Bill down off of the iron ladder or escape ladder, and he slipped and he landed on a bush, all icicles. And here he is running around out there, and I'm there left to my head out. He's holding his butt. He couldn't find the dog. I grabbed a hold of him and brought him up. But if we got caught, we'd have got kicked out.
Okay, so you left the seminary. What field of work did you then go into when you were no longer going to be a priest?
on summer vacations, I worked for NSP, Northern States Power Company, reading meters. One of the best jobs I ever had. And so I went back and they got rehired by NSP.
Okay.
And I was floundering around a little bit. I signed up at three universities in medicine, and one of them was St. Thomas. And the registrar there got my application. He called me. He says, "I'd like to talk to you. Would you come over?" So I said, "Sure." He says, "We never taught any sciences in the seminary, and if you made it, you'd be an old man." He says, "But you have the credentials to go into law, and there's a night law school in Minneapolis." He says, "Why don't you consider that?" So I went down, I signed up. And that's where 7 of us signed up. It was a hybrid class because half our classes were with seniors and half freshmen. And then 3 of them in June left, and there were 4 of us, Clarence Terpstra, Dave Mickelson, John Keefe, and myself. We were like glued together the remaining years in the legal.
So what kind of law did you practice?
Initially, everything.
Okay.
There's only 4 of us in the law firm. And then as things developed and the whole law practice became very, I can't think of the word, that you tried to specialize
Sure.
in certain fields, and so it was criminal law and divorce as handling. But as clients of the office, I handled 6 years as a public defender as a client, 4 years as a city attorney for the city of Blaine. 4 years, I left the law firm and went as the first county assistant for the city of Anoka. There were only 2 of us, R.W. Johnson and myself, and I did all of the trial work.
Wow.
And then there was a guy that took my place when I left law practice, John Pearson, who lived in the northern part of the state of Minnesota. And there was a judgeship that opened up, and he got that judgeship. And then I was sitting in the courtroom one day, and Pete Barna, who was one of the founders of the law firm, come up to me, says, "Gabe, how about coming back to the law firm?" So I went and talked to R.W., and we discussed it, and I ended up going into the old law firm. I was only a judge from 1990 to the year 2000.
Okay.
According to Minnesota law, it's statutory. Our Supreme Court justices, appellate court justices, all the district court judges have to retire at age 70. They won't let you practice regularly.
How did you meet your wife?
Well, it was 4th of July weekend of 1955. Her best friend was marrying one of my buddies, not from the seminary, Irish buddies. There were a bunch of Irish guys that we hung around with. And on the long weekends, my wife Leslie's folks had relatives up in Randall, Minnesota, and they'd always go up there and spend the weekend. And so Leslie was home alone, and Mary, she called Leslie, says, I'm going to come pick you up and introduce you to the guys that are going to be in the wedding. It was going to be a large wedding. And Leslie says, no, I'm not going. Next thing, Leslie shows up at her home. Come on, you're coming with me. So she came over, and I can still picture her. We hung out at a 3-2 joint on 50th and Central. Canans, but there's another name. And I can see her still walking up to the 3-2 joint, and we were all in there drinking beer. Well, she spent the weekend with us, and she had the greatest weekend she ever had, she said. So she didn't think I was going to call her up, but within the week I called her up for a date, and she says yes. So 40 days and 40 nights, I had already gotten a ring. I went.
Wow, it was love at first sight.
Yes, and so I gave her a ring, and her parish priest, Father Francis Fleming, just a great guy, says, I want to talk to both of you. I want to see you in church every Sunday, and you better hold off for a year. So we did. Got married on June 30th, 1956.
Wow.
And it was just a wonderful life.
And what was it like raising 5 kids?
Didn't spend enough time in them. Spent all your time working. We were open 6 days a week in the law firm back then.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And you look back, and everything was taken care of by Mom. Broomball, hockey, football, baseball. She'd have to drive him back and forth, all these. And you look upon it now, you know, that you didn't spend the time that you should have.
So what are a couple favorite memories of the kids growing up?
Taking them skiing to Winter Park, Colorado.
So you were a skier?
Loved it. And the wife became a skier.
How many grandchildren?
11, right. And one passed on, who was a severe handicap little girl, had Lenz Majewski hypersinosis. We kept her alive for 11 years. She couldn't talk. She couldn't move. She laid on the floor watching Elmo. And Lisa took care of her. She wouldn't work back then. She had to take care of her kids. And Ashley, her daughter, who's living yet, a crackerjack, but she has Down syndrome. So Lisa and Tom, I had their hands full. There was a home, Hazel Hartman. They're the originator of the area where we live. There are 32 homes in. She was a grandmother to all the kids in the neighborhood. She had those kids over. She made popcorn, donuts, cookies. She was one of the greatest persons we ever had contact with. In August of 1963 is when we moved into the home that my daughter and son-in-law are in. And here's this old woman out alongside the home with a big sigh. She's cutting away. And when I went out to see what she was doing, and I don't know if I even knew her name, but Hazel, what are you doing? I'm cutting the marijuana plants out. We had a block room. My oldest daughter lives in the home that we lived in for about 33 years, and they'd hang their clothes there. And so the wife went to check the jackets, and geez, this jacket feels, there's something in it. So she pulled them out. They're Playboys. Now, I gave the boys an old briefcase. And I come home, it was from work, it was a warm day. You come in the bottom level and go up the stairs, and there is my wife at the top. She was mad as could be. You go look at what your boys are reading. Why? Go in my room. Take a look at the briefcase. So I went in the room. They got there before me, and they put Popular Mechanics and took all the Playboys out. I says, what's wrong? This is good reading material.
So let me ask you this. What would you like to say to your great-grandchildren when they get a chance to watch this?
Go to school, get an education. One of the most important things in life is an education.